As the current Odyssey finishes up its life cycle, I find myself appreciating the Honda van more than ever. It fights automotive trends like someone smoked its dog, but I'm beginning to question if its battle has gone too far. If you enjoy fun, detailed car content, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. Thank you. Just as the car gods intended, the Odyssey is a front-wheel drive, 8-passenger, curvy box with a naturally aspirated V6. But it does have some modern amenities and tricks. For 2023, the big change here was that Honda dropped the LX trim, just like they temporarily did for the CR-V and Civic. And then they added a sports spec, which is exactly what you think it is. Black wheels, black exterior accents, black seats with red stitching, and red ambient lighting. Up front, you will have LED reflector headlights standard on every Odyssey. No projectors are available, but these do have auto high beams, and you will also have standard LED fog lights to help supplement. A key feature on all minivans is power rear doors, and you're going to have those standard here, but they are not hands-free on any trim. Avoid the entry-level EX trim and you will have a power rear gate. While this does use a very cheap-looking button, it does have proximity unlock and lock as standard. And just like Odysseys of yesteryear, you can roll down all of the windows with the key fob. Briefly, I'd like to thank Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana for letting me test drive the Odyssey for today's video. Royal South is a friendly dealership dedicated to the community. If you're in the market, check them out. While you have a lot more space on the inside than the footprint would suggest, this is still not a small vehicle, but unfortunately, you will only get parking sensors if you go with the Touring. There's no 360 view camera available. Honda believes you should trust in your senses. They also provide you with a very sensible cabin. The main focus of the Odyssey isn't to impress the front seat occupants, but it hits the crucial parts out of the park. You do have soft touch materials for basically every rest point. You know, your elbows, your outboard knee here. There's not, a giant console here like there is with a lot of SUVs, so I have good knee space, and this pairs up nicely with some supportive soft seats. They are also well shaped. This could be made better if they had some sort of thigh extension here, but as it sits, I think a very wide variety of people will find these pretty comfortable. You're also going to have lumbar adjustment standard. And if you just step up to the EXL trim, you'll have that on the passenger seat as well. Making this great for road trips, but also easy to live with on a day-to-day basis. Getting in and out of it involves minimal contortions. And you also don't have to flex your brain in order to use the interior. Yes, this is all very dated, especially if you look at competitors like the Kia Carnival, which really just blows this thing out of the water in regards to luxury and just wow factor. But I like that most of the HVAC controls are physical. Yes, you do have to hit this climate button if you want to fine tune where the air is going, but I do think it's laid out well, and you're gonna have tri-zone automatic climate control in here as standard. The materials are mostly easy to clean plastics. It feels well built, but a bit cheap considering its price. Thankfully, most controls are physical, and there is a shortage of glossy finishes in high traffic areas. The infotainment system also isn't as bad as I was thinking. I mean, the screen and how it's set up looks very cheap, but I find the actual response time to be adequate, and the resolution follows suit. The UI is pretty easy to use, though Honda's latest system in the Accord is more fluid and improved all around. This also has wired CarPlay and Android Auto only. The gauge cluster is limited in functionality, but clear to read as it should be. And the next highlight of the interior is the storage. I'm having a hard time thinking of a door pocket with more individual cubbies. You also have a decent amount of hidden ones, especially in the center console here and in this shelf, another drawer, and then you have something like 15 cup holders throughout the interior. And then of course you also have family monitoring systems. So the most basic of which is your dad mirror here. And then you also have a cabin view system, which looks like security cam footage for your kids. Lastly, there is cabin talk, which acts as an intercom to the rear of the van. That is only for the most elite specs. Before I hop into the back, I'd like to point out that the Odyssey does have a good amount of amenities. On the lower trims, you will have heated seats up front as standard. You will also have a 7-speaker audio system that includes a subwoofer on every trim, which I'd love to see. Step up to the EXL and you will get a leather wheel, which I should note, this is kind of large for a minivan in my opinion, but then you will also have leather seats and a sunroof. The aforementioned Sport is based on the EXL. The Touring adds a few niceties around back, but then you will actually have to spec this all the way up to an Elite to just get a heated steering wheel. You will get ventilated seats there, a wireless charger, blue ambient lighting, and an amped up but still unremarkable sound system. A lot of new cars just offer some better features on the top end, but I think they nailed the comfort, space, and storage aspect here, which a lot of new cars are starting to lag behind on. I think that it's pretty easy to argue that a minivan is going to be hands down the most comfortable way to travel thousands of miles, especially if you're a rear seat passenger. You know, I'm 6'3". The front seat was set up for a comfortable position. I still have inches here to go for my knees. I can recline the seat an okay amount, and I have some handy armrests that are honestly a little bit too skinny to be super comfortable, but it is nice to have them there if you want them. But the thing that really catches my attention is just how plush these seats are. And I would be extremely comfortable back here for a long journey as a result. I think that the seat could be a little bit further away from the floor to give me better thigh support, but still, you would never find me complaining if I had to sit back here. And as long as you get the EXL trim, you're gonna have plenty of charging ports. The Touring adds this entertainment center. My parents had an '08 Honda Pilot when I was growing up, and I swear the screen was the same size. I think the resolution has improved a little bit. What I do appreciate back here is the storage levels, lots of places where you can put different things, and then you also have the versatility of having a removable center seat, which, you know, not exactly unheard of, but it is actually a usable seat. And its width also means that if you remove it, you have a very nice hallway. Or you can also slide either one of the rear seats toward the center, which allows for easier access to the third row from the side. You don't really get that sort of configurability with the Toyota Sienna. And with that, you can't remove the rear seats, but you can here without unscrewing or unbolting anything. I only have a couple complaints in the back. There's no more Honda vac. That's just disappeared because the company that made them disappeared. Getting into the third row is really not that difficult. Once you're back here, even at my height, I can put the second row as far back as it goes, and I have plenty of space. And it's not just big, it's also comfortable because, again, you have these very plush seats. There's also plenty of width. The floor seems very low for a third row at least. And I think most adults will have zero problem sitting back here for an extended duration of time. And you can also get things like third row sunshades. You'll actually have second row sunshades standard on all cars. What I find interesting back here is that everything is still pretty hard touch plastic for where your elbows rest. It seems like a little bit of soft touch there would have been nice. One last complaint, you can't get heated rear seats at all. I mean, I feel like some models have heated and ventilated rear seats, but there's enough size and plushness back here for me to forgive that. The cargo area of the Honda Odyssey behind the third row is actually standable. With the second row down, you actually have more space in the back volume-wise than you do behind the first row of a lot of 3-row crossovers. Remove the second row of seats and you can fit a couple 4x8 sheets in this thing and shut the door. Or you can really load the thing up and you'll just have to bungee cord the tailgate down. Now, a couple notes, the middle seat does not store back here like it does in, I think, the Sienna. And the spare tire is actually located underneath the front seats. I also like how streamlined it is to make the third row seats do a backflip into the well. Now, I've already highlighted some of the biggest advantages to the Odyssey and its aging platform, but the biggest question for me is, can it still hold its own on the road? One of the most notable aspects of the Honda Odyssey is its naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6. It makes 280 horsepower, and that is routed through a 10-speed automatic. This transmission does do a pretty good job whenever you have it in sport mode or your foot is planted at getting the engine to the power band. The transmission itself I've found to be very smooth. Pulling up a hill. Come on, downshift, downshift, downshift. Okay. At the very least, you know, it doesn't feel like it's lugging the engine too much because there is still okay torque. It just refuses to downshift in a way that I don't really understand for a vehicle with 10 speeds. I also do have paddle shifters. This is actually a kind of fun engine to bring out. You know, we don't really have VTEC like this anymore. In the new 3.5 liter V6 that's in the Pilot, which makes this even more special. You can really hear it come alive at about 5,000 RPM. Now let's quantify the acceleration. Transmission tries to snap off those gears. It's not super great at that, but so long as you're easy at the launch there to not light up the wheels, you'll get to 60 in under 7 seconds. This engine, awesome for a car reviewer in his early 20s, but I think people that are really buying these probably not going to bring this thing past 5,000 RPM very much. However, this powertrain does still have more to offer to the traditional buyer. First of all, very linear, natural feeling power band, and the torque converted automatic means no lawnmower noises under hard acceleration. If I bring this up to 65 and then shift into 10th gear, we're below 1500 RPM. And when you have this at higher speeds, you'll like that the EXL trims and above have an acoustic windshield. It is pretty quiet in here, and actually if you step up to the Elite, you have the first and second row windows as acoustic as well, making this phenomenal for highway travel. Gas mileage isn't too shabby either for a 3-row V6 van, but it's predictably much less than the hybrid competition. And if you pull stuff on the highway, the Odyssey tows a class competitive 3,500 pounds. But really what I have noticed already is that this thing can struggle for traction. So I really wish that Honda offered all-wheel drive. The Sienna has a huge leg up in that regard. Here on this ghastly Indiana back road with many undulations and breaks in the pavement, the Odyssey really excels. I think that you're going to find a comfortable, forgiving ride just as much as you will find a composed one. I'm hitting all of these bumps and none of them are really crashing into the cabin. You're just aware of them. There may be smoother 3-row vehicles out there, but this finds a great blend between rough pavement comfort and corner competence. Oddly enough, a strong suit to the Odyssey has always been its handling. And that's no different here, but you really need to make sure your expectations are still within the realm of a large 3-row vehicle. On twisty roads with imperfections, you feel the weight, but it's planted as it leans through the curves. And as you bring the Odyssey up to higher speeds, that rear end still actually feels more well kept than I was thinking. There is still slower steering that you would expect with this large of a vehicle and one sprung this softly, but it is far from sloppy. And I do also want to give a nod to the steering. It does feel direct, and there is just a sliver of communication, feedback sent through the wheel there, helping this feel more natural. I wouldn't liken it to something like a Mazda, but I'm glad to see that it's not just vague on center or way over boosted. It helps make this feel more approachable to drive than the dimensions may suggest. Furthering that point is the great visibility. The Odyssey is also extremely safe according to crash tests. It also comes standard with blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise, autonomous braking, and lane keep assist, but not a formal lane centering system. But a huge talking point for the Odyssey is that it comes with the Honda nameplate. It's got a naturally aspirated V6, no CVTs. It's gonna be more reliable than basically everything else, but if you look at the data, that's not really the case here. I still wouldn't call it untrustworthy. From 2018 to 2023, the single overhead cam V6 hasn't had any common problems itself, but the standard stop-start system has garnered many complaints, including some where it completely stalls. This seems more rare for later models, but other folks are reporting failing transmissions, especially if you look into NHSTA reports and owner reviews on Edmunds. Miscellaneous electronic and infotainment woes are voiced too, and Consumer Reports confirms that. The paint also garners some grief from owners, but overall most people seem to be satisfied with their Odysseys. If reliability is your highest priority, I'd suggest the Sienna first, but the Honda doesn't scare me, leading me to a somewhat conflicting conclusion. When I was going into this review, I was kind of expecting this to just feel hilariously dated compared to some of its competition. And it does in certain regards, but I've also found that this formula that Honda has works really well. People buying three-row vehicles tend to care about value, space, and comfort. This aces all three of those while going above and beyond on versatility. Add in a quiet ride, a charismatic powertrain, lively handling, and a straightforward interior to make for a minivan that I'd actually look forward to driving. If you need maximum practicality, like maximum, but you still want a ride with some personality, the Honda Odyssey deserves a very close look. That said, people looking for minivans in specific probably value fuel economy, all-wheel drive, and reliability more than a sick, nasty VTEC changeover in 10 gears. For that reason, I think the Odyssey will probably become more like the Sienna in the future, and it'll be better for it. As it sits, I'm glad the Honda has been stubborn. Its relatively basic nature hasn't made it the most dependable in its class, but it has injected the van with life. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like to help me take on the ever-elusive YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell for more. Follow me on Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.